Hey everyone, welcome back to Carrots and Olives. My name is Brittany, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. So we all know that I'm trying to keep better track of my pens and to have some type of control over what I'm using every month. So at the beginning of February, a couple weeks ago, I talked about the currently inked fountain pens that I decided to ink for the month of February, and I decided to pick this bluish theme. A lot of sheening inks in there, and just a new set of pens. So I've been having thoughts about some of these pens because the combination of them I would not normally choose and would be a little bit risky. I just got water on here. So let's get into it. This is how I decided to set it up, and we have mid-month thoughts. I haven't gone through all the fountain pens, but I wanted to kind of do some of this in real time on video. So I decided to get started on the first few items, or first few pens. So I started off with my Traveler's Company fountain pen, which is in here. And this little guy was definitely one of my favorite pens, probably like 4.5 years ago. And since I, deep dove into getting new pens and things like that, it has simply been left behind for some time. But now that we're using it this month, I have noticed that with this, writing with this pen, it is more towards the sailor end than the Labond and the scribe or scribo end, in the sense that the nib writes a little bit more like a pencil on the paper than a lot more of my other pens since I've purchased this one. So it's not such a super smooth, glassy writer in comparison to some of the other pens that I'm writing with this month. And I've noticed that with this one. I've also decided to just write a little snippet of how I felt about each pen at the time, and actually started this last night since I had some time to myself. I just haven't finished since I do have about 5 more pens to talk about. But with this one, I do like it. I think the ink in here is pretty solid. It is a little bit dry of an ink, and you could tell here when I did the water test, and I pulled this from Chris Sands, and I really love how she does her like mid-month thoughts, and then she does a whole page for each ink and pen, and then she does some water like testing on the inks. So I decided to do that. I didn't want to go too in-depth in like each particular pen ink combination, but adding some water to the ink really can tell you a lot about the ink. So what I've noticed about the Regulus is that this ink is really pretty. It doesn't show all the properties, I think, in this particular pen because it is fine. And I see like this green color when I swatched it out, and I don't see that at all with this ink. Also, I noticed that when I write with this pen for a long period of time, the ink tends to change over time. So by the top, from the top to the bottom, the ink is darker at the top than it is at the bottom of my sentences, and you can kind of tell here as well. But even when I add water to this ink, you can see how it's still really light. Like the ink, at least coming out of this pen, is not, it's very dry, and it's very noticeable in the water swatch here. But I do like the color. I think it's a easy color on the eyes. It's still legible even when it's dark and light. So I do actually enjoy writing with this ink and pen combination. So I'm not going to go into depth with every single one, but I will talk about the ones I've already already did it like my mid-month thoughts so far. My next one is the Laban, and I use the Grandview Avenue Midnight Horizon in this one, and it's like chef's kiss. And I think with Laban, you have to just find the right ink. This ink, and also I've used a brown ink with this pen that just works so well. It makes the pen write so smooth, and this pen is so comfortable with the weight that it has without it being posted, to just write for like long periods of time. So you gotta tell with this ink, this is from Birmingham Pen Company, that it's really interesting. It's dark enough to see, and then it has like this blue, like deep blue to it that is just so appealing to me. And then even in the swatching with the water, it's just a really pretty color blue. So it's almost like a gray blue to me, and I think that's more of the blue that I prefer than some of the like cooler blues. But here I was just saying that I find that my handwriting is more consistent with this pen than it was with my Traveler's Company pen, just because the grip section is a lot skinnier and this one is a lot thicker. So I do find that I'm not always switching my hand into different positions when writing because they get tired, but not with this one. So next is the Walden Pond Blue, and that's from Organic Studio, and it is in this pen, which is the Moon Man. And I actually switched out the nib for this Moon Man to a Schmidt nib, which I got from the Colorful Pens. I don't know why I can't think of the name, but the funky shaped colorful pens. And it writes so well in this Moon Man. This Moon Man is really comfortable. It's very lightweight. And if you can get a great nib to just be house in here, it's like a really great price and a really great writer. So this nib is awesome. It is an extra fine, and the ink is so beautiful. It's very mysterious when it's like in this barrel, because you can kind of see the green pooling in the reflective parts of the barrel. But it's one of those sheening inks, and so you can't see the color that it's going to sheen to while it's in the barrel, but it is like a really nice surprise. So the difficulty with this pen is the fact that if I am thinking for a minute, even like up to like 15 seconds while this is uncapped, it will dry out. And I have to press really hard on the nib to get it to flow again if I want to be lazy and not go find like a paper towel or a water brush to get it started again. So that has been the frustration with this pen, and it's not necessarily the pen nib itself. It's more like the fact that it's an extra fine with a really sheening ink that has particles in it that easily get stuck. So I am not sure if it's really worth having this particular ink with this nib here, even though this is a large filled ink capacity and it is a eyedropper pen. It's still, when it flows great, but the minute you stop, it just stops and it's really frustrating. So that's what I have so far. The other pens that I need to do some mid-month thoughts on are my Sailor, which has the Yamadori ink in it, and it writes really well. It's just, it kind of gives me the same hard starts as the Moon Man, but once when it starts, like to get it started up again, it doesn't take that much effort. And then my Twsbi here, which is just a dream. I haven't written with this in quite a few years, because at the time when I first got this was one of my heaviest pens, and I thought it was too heavy for my hand. It was uncomfortable. But since then, and growing and learning, I realized that it's no longer my heaviest pen. So when I come back to this, or when I came back to this, I realized how comfortable it was. I don't post it, but it also helps make my handwriting more consistent. Same with the Laban. And then the ink is the Winter Night Pearl, which is pretty. It has, you probably can't see it, but it's supposed to have some sparkle, or it's part of the glistening inks. And when I look at here, you might be able to see a little bit of sparkle in it by Dominant Industry. It doesn't show the sparkle too much when it's watered down, but it is a pretty color, and I think it looks better when it's written this way than when it's watered down. But it is becoming like one of my favorite ink and pen combinations, along with the Grandview Avenue in Laban. So I'm just waiting for this to dry a little bit more. Okay, I'll put this down. So on the back, I still have room to write my thoughts, and then I have some add-ons. So I figured we can do some add-ons and talk about those, and then I will end it there. So I've added on a couple of pens, and I've talked about these in separate videos, but they have been added to this month's list as well. And so we have the 2 Esterbrook's here, and I have my Pilot Kakuno, which was really actually something I didn't talk about, but that was like a last second thing that I just wanted to have inked up. And then my fountain pen I got from Hawaii as a gift from my mother. So let's start with my Pilot Kakuno. So in the process of starting to pack and things like that, I've came upon like all my fountain pen boxes, which I keep when it's like really nice fountain pens. And I completely forgot that the Leonardo fountain pen box contained a Leonardo ink. So I decided to ink it up, test it out real quick and ink it up, and it's so gorgeous. I decided to pick the Pilot Kakuno. And it was just a last minute choice. I know that this pen writes really well. This is the Leonardo. Offincina, and it's the black. So I have it under the Pilot Kakuno. And this is in the fine. Nope, I'm wrong. This is in the medium. This black is like a blue black to me, and it's just gorgeous. It looks so good. So let's see if I can, let's do something like this. And let's take my water brush. It reminds me of the Birmingham Pen Company Midnight Horizon. Oops. This brush is not the best because it kind of gives too much water. But it's really, oh, it's so pretty. So if you didn't watch one of my recent videos, I did get the Esterbrook candy, and I decided to put it in this Lamy ink. And this is the crystal ink, and this color is the Rhodonite. And I feel like it fits perfectly with the pink in the barrel. And the nice thing about this ink is that it kind of pools a little bit on the edges to be darker than it is in the middle when you're writing. So this is my Esterbrook Estie Oversize candy. And then let's see how this one writes, or how the pink reacts to the water. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting anything fantastical, anything amazing from this, but the pink is pretty. So then I got the Evergreen Estie, and I am using Tea Time from Endless Pens. It's an exclusive ink with Robert Oster, and I'm still trying to learn this ink. It is bright, but not like too bright. And I decided to put on the journaler nib, which I got from the company. So this is the Robert Oster. So you can see how it can be really bright, but it's still legible, and it has that really nice pool of being lighter in the middle of the letters, and on the outer part of the letter, it's like could be really dark, like a dark outline. So this one is a Esterbrook SG regular size, and it's the Evergreen. Now this color doesn't really match the barrel, but it's green and I wanted to try it. I'm still learning about this ink and how well it behaves, but it's a really bright ink, and you'll see here with the water test how bright it could be. It's almost like spring grass. Color. So okay, so last edition is this beautiful pen that was made in Hawaii, and my mom picked it up when she was there in January, and it has some weight to it. It's actually heavier than the Esterbrook Oversize, and it can stand up on its own like that, which is cool. So you might hate me, but I can't quite remember the ink I used. But believe it or not, this pen packs a punch. And it just starts working really well. And I haven't even touched this in a couple weeks, actually. So, but yes, I'm just gonna call this, oh, I wish I knew. I wish I can remember the color of the ink, but I'm just gonna say, unknown color. Unfortunately, I might remember later, like after the video, and I'm calling it my Hawaii. Fountain pen. But it writes really well. There's no distinction of what nib is on here. It's just blank. I don't believe it's a gold nib. I want to say it's just gold plated. But it actually writes really well. The balance is a little bit off because there's more weight at the bottom of the pen. But it doesn't bother me. But this is also a really pretty blue. And if I can figure out which blue it was that I used, I will put it in the description box. All right, so to recap, these are the additional add-ons, and I think there's going to be 2 more that I'm adding on, but you could see like these beautiful colors. They are really pretty. I especially like this color for its uniqueness. It's like purple, there's pink in there with the blue, and then even this blue that I can't figure out what color it or what is the maker. But these are more like spring colors to me, so that's exciting too. But yeah, so these are the ones I've added on for this month so far, and I have a few more pens to do reviews on for mid-month. And I figure I would just share like the process and what's been going through my head so far, even though it's not a complete thoughts on everything, but at least you can get a general idea. And if you're looking for ideas on how to rate your pens, or some things to consider when rating them, hopefully this was helpful. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.